Karnataka government has on Thursday, that is today, assured the Supreme Court that no admissions or appointments would be made in pursuance of the government order scrapping the nearly 3 decades old 4% OBC reservation provided to Muslims. Nothing irreversible will happen between today and Tuesday. That's what the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta submitted in court. This was after a bench comprising Justices A.M. Joseph and B.V. Nagratna expressed an inclination to stay the government order in question over here. Prima facie, the impugned government order appears to suggest that the foundation of the decision-making process was highly shaky and flawed. What the court really said was that the interim report should not have been relied on to scrap the 4% quota for the Muslims that the government had done in Karnataka. Let me go across to Shrija now for more details on this. Shrija, this decision, or rather the holding of the scrapping of the 4% quota for Muslims coming just ahead of the elections in Karnataka, any initial reactions that you're getting from the government?
Well, so far, no. But what we do know is that this is a huge setback for the Mumbai government, for the BJP government here in the state of Karnataka, because, Mumbai government was the one which aggressively pushed for this. Of course, you had, several protests that were taking place in the backdrop of all this, where the Mumbai government had to take up a decision of basically scrapping that 4% of OBC quota which was reserved for the Muslims and push it to especially the Lingayats and the Vokaliga community, which is 2% each. Yes, in a short while from now, we will of course hear from Chief Minister Basuraj Bommai as to what really has happened. But now it really wouldn't really make a difference, because we will only know what Bommai is going to say. The next course of action would be as far as the Karnataka government goes, because if you're really looking at, the solicitor, especially appearing for the Karnataka government, has made a submission to the apex court saying that there won't be any appointment whatsoever made to the government order. This is, from what, as far as the scrapping of the 4% of OBC quota to the, which was reserved to the Muslims are concerned, and then later which was divided amongst the Lingayats and Vokaliga. So there won't be any appointments whatsoever made to this particular government order, which means that the apex court will hear this particular case on April 18th. But again, to talk about, the political implications of it, the ramifications, we see that after, weeks and weeks of protests, what we witnessed in the state of Karnataka, especially from the Lingayat community, we see that was a major decision which was taken up by the Karnataka Chief Minister Basuraj Bommai, where he had to go ahead, especially cancel that OBC, which is the Muslims 4% quota. See, we could clearly see the three key words, especially, striking words used by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court goes on to talk about how, based on a report which is especially a fallacious assumption, and the Supreme Court does, of course, talk about, being flawed and, on shaky ground, especially the data which was, according to the Karnataka government, the submission which they made before the Supreme Court, saying that, the Supreme Court did, of course, say it is based on shaky ground. So there's no absolute data to suggest that why exactly that particular 4% quota, which was reserved for the Muslim, was removed by the Bommai government. So clearly it is a political motivated thing. Now you have the Supreme Court questioning the Karnataka government on what basis, on what grounds. Do you have proof? Do you have data to suggest that this is the reason why you all had to remove? So clearly the Karnataka government was not in a position to submit, in terms of data which could especially be more confident for the Supreme Court to look into it. Instead, the Supreme Court went on to talk about and label it as shaky, based on, on shaky grounds or fallacious, in terms of assumptions. This particular data, which based on that, we see that the OBC's quota was scrapped. So again, on 18th of April, especially the solicitors or the advocates appearing for the Karnataka government will have to be especially able to answer or reason before the Supreme Court as to why exactly Bommai made that decision, or the government made that decision, to especially move the 2%, which is 2% each, to Lingayats and Vokaliga. To give you a more perspective or context with respect to, in terms of political wise, we see that the Lingayats and the Vokaligas, these are the two communities which have the power to determine the poll outcome. So it comes exactly just a month and a half before the elections, where we went on to see Bommai making such a confident and a smart move.
Right, Shrija. Many thanks for joining us with all those details and explaining the political ramifications of what has transpired legally for the Karnataka government in the Supreme Court today.